Welcome back to another Sabbath School lesson, everyone. This is lesson number 9, Living Wisely. Let's go ahead and dive right into the lesson for this week, and it comes from Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 15 through 17, and it says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is." Really, Paul is continuing his main theme of Christian behavior here. He does kind of bring out a couple of key things, talking about walking in the light, but a lot of the same features, especially in the first 7 verses you're going to see, is essentially mimicking what he basically said in chapter 4. The main idea that Paul is getting at is there's a group of people during Paul's day that seem to keep going around spreading ideas that if you believe in Christ, then therefore that's all that matters. And as long as you believe in Christ, Christ will save you. Your belief is all that matters, and your behavior is not as important. So you can do whatever you want to do as long as you believe. His main point to you is that your behavior matters as much as your belief. Your behavior matters as much as your belief. Now, point number 2, I want you to look at Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 15 and 16. And it says, "See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil." The big point here that the author kind of brings out, he kind of goes into a little bit the Greek meaning of the term, like redeeming the time and other stuff like that. But the idea here is to take full advantage of the day, take full advantage of your week, full advantage of the year. Make sure that you're maximizing your day and giving thanks to God also as you go throughout your day. And this is a running theme that happens in the book of Ephesians. Paul continually says to actually give thanks. But in this perspective, I think he's also kind of mimicking, if you ever heard of the Psalm of Moses, I think it's Psalms chapter 90. It's when Moses says, "Teach us to number our days so that we can gain a heart of wisdom." But the point Paul is really trying to make here is make sure that you're maximizing the day. And that's the author's kind of theme as well. So just a brief review, you find that Paul is really trying to get out, and the author's trying to get out, that your behavior matters as much as your belief. Your behavior matters as much as your belief. And regardless of whatever people may tell you, it's not just a belief in Christ that matters. Your behavior matters as well. The second thing is going to be to make sure that you're maximizing your day, making the most of your time and giving praise back to God. This is Paul's key thing, thanksgiving continually. So as long as you are understanding that your behavior matters as much as your belief and that you're maximizing your day, taking full advantage of each moment and giving thanks to God, then you're doing what Ephesians chapter 4 and 5 are telling you to do. Now, let's move on to the profound meditation. Okay, so for the profound meditation, I want you to see something that's very interesting in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 11 and 12. And it says, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of those things which are done by them in secret." Okay, so what Paul says here is that you shouldn't have any fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. Now, what many people think this is saying that therefore I shouldn't have anything to do with people that are unchristlike, right? If you're unchristlike and you're doing unchristlike things, I shouldn't really associate myself to you. And really that's not exactly what Paul is trying to say. What he's really trying to kind of get at here is really the Greek word interpretation of the word fellowship actually means to be an accomplice. An accomplice is really someone that actually helps someone do something that's usually wrong. So the idea here is to not help people do unchristlike things. Don't help people do unchristlike things. And that's really the idea of what Paul says. Don't fellowship with the works of darkness. Don't help people do unchristlike things. Something that's interesting is that if you look back in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century, there are many things that Christians did to actually encourage people to do unchristlike things. And I'm not saying they said, hey, go over and do this action or go steal from that person or whatever you want to think. But a lot of times when unbelievers came into the fold, they came into these Christian groups. The Christian groups were so, I should probably say, exclusive to themselves that they didn't really allow too many people in. They were very, it was kind of almost like a pact or I don't want to say a gang, but it was very hard to get into in some sense. Right. So they eat together. They obviously sleep, close to each other. They would usually try to work together if they can. They kind of circle their lives around each other as much as possible. And so it was a tight knit community. Now, one thing that's important is if you ended up doing something that frustrated somebody, or you got into an argument with one of those Christians in that group that was very influential, it can be kind of difficult because maybe you're an unbeliever and you're still trying to kind of find your way and your purpose in this group or whatever it may be. And maybe because you have ill feelings towards someone, you get turned away. One of the problems that happens is many people would end up leaving the group that were new believers, and they would just go back into the world because they didn't feel like they actually could truly be accepted inside of the group, because maybe an issue happened, or maybe they did something wrong and they were being judged in a certain type of way. Giving an example, a person would go off and they would have a baby out of wedlock, and because of that, the group would see them in a certain type of way, and they would just feel exiled essentially from the group and go back to all of their community of people that were actually doing unchristlike things. So the idea here is that sometimes when Christians are so exclusive to each other people can actually feel exiled out of their group. So one of the way Christians actually become an accomplice in helping people do unchristlike things is by shunning people when they do something that the group disagrees with. So I have a question for you. What are you doing to help people be more Christ-like? What are you doing to help people be more Christ-like? I'm Oswald, and this is Profound Meditations, Sabbath School Summer.